The village was asleep, but Daria was not. She sat by her mother's bedside, clutching her cold hand tightly. The woman's breathing was heavy, intermittent, as if life itself were slipping through her fingers. "You won't die," Daria whispered, but her voice trembled. She knew her mother would not live to see the morning. The illness that struck her was unnatural. The neighbors whispered that it was a punishment, that the witch of the forest had cast a curse on her. Daria didn't believe in witches. Not until today. She stood up, her heart thumping deafeningly in her chest. She'd been told that in an old cabin behind the forest lived one that could save or destroy. If there was even the slightest chance, Daria took a deep breath and stepped into the night. The forest met her with dead silence. The trees stretched black silhouettes toward the sky, their branches twisting like hands trying to grab her. Every step echoed. A hut appeared ahead. It looked old, but it was sturdy. Its walls were scrawled with strange signs, and a faint light flickered in the windows. Daria swallowed. "Don't go into the forest after sundown." Too late. She raised her hand and knocked on the door. There was silence, then a creak, and the door slowly opened. A woman stood in the doorway. Her face was hidden by a shadow, but her eyes glowed like 2 drops of molten gold. "You've come." The voice was low, almost a whisper. Daria didn't back down. "Save my mother." The witch looked at her in silence. "All magic comes with a price. Girl, are you willing to pay it?" Daria swallowed. "Yes." The witch smiled. "Then come in." Then. The door closed behind Daria's back. The hut inside was larger than it looked from the outside. The air smelled of herbs, ash, and something sweetly rotten. The fire in the fireplace flickered in the corner, casting twisting shadows across the walls. Daria stood in the center, not daring to take a step further. "You're afraid?" The witch grinned, stepping closer. Her skin was pale, almost transparent, and her eyes were black, pupilless. "I just dashed." Daria swallowed. "I need help." The witch tilted her head, her lips curling into a strange smile. "They want to burn your mother, right?" Daria nodded. "They say she's a witch, but it's not her fault." The witch looked at her for a long moment, then spoke softly. "I can save her." Hope flashed in Daria's eyes. "Really? How?" "Oh, girl." The witch ran her bony hand across the wooden table, leaving black marks on it. "All magic comes with a price. I'll pay it. Anything." The witch froze. "You are the price." Daria tensed. "What?" "Your blood, your soul, your life. I will take you, and in return, she will be free." Daria felt the world around her shake. And no, there must be another way. The witch leaned close to her ear. "There is." Daria held her breath. "Find someone to die in your place. Bring me another sacrifice before dawn and your mother will live." Daria felt her heart clench. "But it's either you or someone else. It's your choice." The witch retreated into the shadows. Time passed. Daria stood in silence, feeling her soul torn by fear. Who could she give in her place? Daria ran out of the hut, her heart racing. The forest greeted her with an ominous silence, but now she no longer feared its shadows. She was afraid of something else. "Find another victim." The witch's words echoed icily in her head. She stopped, breathing heavily. Her fingers clutched her mother's amulet. Who could she give it to? She thought of the old blacksmith who always cast predatory glances at her, about the neighbor who had been the first to scream that her mother was a witch, the executioner who was already preparing the pyre. No. Everything inside her protested. She couldn't do it, but if she didn't make the sacrifice, her mother would burn at dawn. The silence of the night was broken by the sound of footsteps. Someone was coming down the path. Daria froze. The flashlight illuminated her face. Dima, her best friend. "Daria?" He ran up, panting. "I've been looking all over for you. Are you okay?" She looked at him in confusion. "What are you doing here?" I couldn't just watch your mother being judged. It's not fair. If there's even the slightest chance of saving her, I will." Daria felt a chill run down her spine. "You are the chance." She knew she had to tell him the truth, asked him to run, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she whispered, "Then, come with me." She led him back to the witch's hut, her every step echoing with pain. Daria and Dima approached the witch's hut. The darkness inside seemed to call to them, promising deliverance, but Daria knew the price of that lie. Is this here? Dima looked around, frowning. I've heard that the witch is real, but I didn't think you were serious. Just trust me, Daria replied quietly. She could feel her breathing hitching, her heart pounding so loudly that the witch could probably already hear her. Dima nodded and stepped forward. There was still a chance to stop. But instead, Daria stepped in behind him, closing the door. The witch was waiting. Her eyes glowed in the darkness, and she seemed to be smiling. You've come back. Daria didn't answer. She only stepped aside, exposing Dima. He frowned. Who is she? The witch stepped forward, her figure seeming unreal, as if woven from shadows. Friend? Brother? Lover? She whispered, keeping her eyes on Daria. Just a friend, she whispered. Dima frowned. What's going on here? The witch swept her hand through the air, and the space around her trembled. The choice had been made. Daria couldn't stand it. I'm sorry, she whispered. Dima didn't have time to react. The witch's shadow swept toward him, enveloping him in icy darkness. His body twisted in a mute scream. Daria? His voice tore through the air, full of pain and fear. Her own scream caught in her throat, and then everything went silent. Dima was no longer breathing. The witch turned to Daria, her smile growing wider. The debt is paid. Your mother will live. Daria collapsed to her knees, shaking with sobs. But deep down, she already knew this was not a victory. Daria stood there, unable to look away. Dima's body slowly crumbled into gray ash, which the witch gathered in her palm and brought to her lips. She inhaled it, closing her eyes with a blissful expression. Pure sacrifice, she whispered, such a rare flavor. Daria shuddered. Is it over? The witch grinned, circling her with her gaze. For your mother, yes. Daria felt the cold fingers of fear squeeze her heart. But for me? The witch leaned in slowly, her lips almost touching Daria's ear. You think you can just give up someone else's life like that and walk away? Daria froze. But you said. I said I wouldn't sacrifice you, but no one said you'd stay the same. Daria felt her skin grow cold. A strange sensation spilled into her chest, as if something inside her was tearing and changing. She lifted her hands. They were trembling, the skin was pale, and the nails were pulling out, turning blacker. Daria looked at the witch in horror. What have you done? The witch smirked. I just gave you what you deserved. You're one of us now. Daria felt her mind sink into darkness. Everything she'd done, everything she had sacrificed. And now she herself was cursed. In the morning, her mother woke up, healthy, without a single trace of illness. But Daria never came home again. And in the woods, by the old witch's hut, there was a new shadow, a new witch, and she was waiting for her first victim.